And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Bubba and the Bloom, episode 54. We had so much fun talking about mid-round bad hitters off the slow starts. Let's do starting pitching tonight. And you guys are coming through with questions again, as always. So we truly, truly appreciate that. We'll talk about some of the bigger news of the week. There's so many injuries and stuff these days. We're not going to cover all of them. That's for darn sure. We'll hit on those. We'll do our weekly game where we're like kissing sisters. That's a golf term, by the way. At least that's where I use it. We just one wins one wins the other. We just keep trying to figure out who can run away with it. But before all that, you can find me on Twitter at BDentric, the podcast at Bubba Bloom Pod, and my co-host is always on Twitter at RyanBHQ. Ryan Bloomfield, how we doing, my friend?
We're doing good. Let's just keep talking about bad fantasy players. Let's just do that. So I don't know. We're going up against the NFL draft tonight, Thursday night. Yep. I don't know if we'll do those kind of numbers, but and also no night games. Like I'm guessing that's not by coincidence.
Well, at first, when I was doing my quick hits, I thought, first off, our buddy Nick Pollock's in the chat. What's up, Nick?
Hey, Nick. That's right.
Yeah, there's a draft
say
right
the F
now.
word shouldn't say the F word with football with Nick around.
Yeah, I brought him here immediately. But I thought it was funny. I was doing like my DFS show, like always. I'm like, there's a 5-game slate. And then I realized it ended at like 7:00 my time, about the 12th pick of the draft. So they didn't like occupy the entire draft. They were smart enough to do that much. So yeah, I'll give baseball credit, because usually, like in years past, on certain nights, like NFL opening night, there's usually never a night game. Like the entire day game is full. Yeah. So they didn't want to take it on, and rightfully so. As much as we love baseball, and most of our listeners love baseball, I think we're both honest enough to admit NFL runs the world when it comes to sports. Don't go up against the big boy. It's kind of how it goes.
They are king.
They are king. But let's talk about some recent news here before we get into our game and then the Bloom board of the week. Some weird ups and downs is the way I'll put it. Taj Bradley's been insanely good. 3-0. Decatur walk percentage is through the roof. I was most impressed his last start he gave against the Astros, gave up like 3 runs in the first inning, and then just really hunkered down, got you 5 solid frames. That's what you love to see from a young pitcher. And then the way the Rays thanked him for that was they sent him to AAA the next day. And their excuse is the most bogus excuse to basically not say, hey, we're just manipulating time. Like they wanted to put him instead of a 6-day schedule onto a 5-day schedule. So we had to send him to AAA for that. My only answer to that was, you want to control his workload. This is the team that mastered the opener. I'm pretty sure they could figure out the workload. So it's a manipulation thing. There's a few people I've talked to that think 3 to 4 weeks he'll be back, because that's how long it should take to transition, if they're being honest. So what's your thoughts on the situation? Because I'm holding him wherever I can, as long as I can. That's not always possible in certain formats, but I am trying my darndest to not have to drop him.
Yeah, I don't think you can. I mean, even in 12 teams, you're just I don't know. I don't buy the excuse either. Like, couldn't the Rays just transition Bradley in the majors? like you said, they do the opener, they do things with 3 or 4 inning outings, and I don't know. I just feel like they could have done that if that truly was the reason. They could have just done that in the majors. So I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely unfortunate. Like, you want to see the best players, and with new CBA, like that's what this is supposed to do. But the Rays are, they're playing chess. Everyone else is playing checkers. But fantasy-wise, it's pretty brutal because, like you said, Bradley was amazing. He was drawing $200 or $300 fab bids, 20-30% of budgets, and people were happy with that. I think still will be. I guess, yeah, what I'm hearing from, I guess, people smarter than me is, like you said, 2 to 3 weeks. And if that's really the case, you've got to hold on. You've got to hold on and keep going.
In reality, let's just like round up. We're going to miss like 4 starts, which sucks because his starts have been that good. But if all it is 4 starts to maybe get 13, 15 more, because they will shut him down. Like, that's realistic. You can't complain about that. Like, at least get him his innings in the bigs. But if it's only like 4 starts and I get like 12 to 15 more, okay, we can do it. Like you said, they're playing chess. Most play checkers. They're also the best team in baseball. They're winning games. They're smoking teams. They just dominated Dylan Cease on Thursday night. Like, it just doesn't matter who's in their way, except for the Astros. The Astros came to town and all of a sudden looked like that scary team that can win the World Series again without a full team yet. So, the Rays are doing their thing. As much as I want to hate on them, they're a good ball club. Cleveland Guardians, this is fun, but I will say there's like a cloud of we don't know. So Logan Allen dominated last week in his debut, was outstanding. But like all week, there was never really an announcement of his spot, never an announcement. But now he's pitching Sunday, so we got that going for now. I joke about it on the First Pitch podcast every morning. It's been like a revolving door in the starting rotation for the Guardians. Every time you look at the projected starters, it changes every day. So for now, he's pitching Sunday. Tanner Bibee got his debut on Wednesday. Electric Factory, 8 Ks over 6 innings, just gifts galore. Now they said he's going to stay with the team on the road trip, but there's nothing official on his role with the team going forward. So that's a question mark. So how do you approach these two? Because they're going to go for high dollars just like Taj did. Edward Julian, not a pitcher. He's already back in the minors. We're seeing all these guys go back. And we got a couple more guys we'll talk about in a minute back in the minors. So how do you approach this one, as they're both talented enough to deserve high dollars if they were to stay in the rotation?
And not only talented enough, like they're built up enough too. So it's, I mean, this
that's why I
isn't
love
like
Taj. That's why I love Taj over some other guys. They're stretched out.
Yes. And even Taj, I mean, he had like, I think 130 minor league innings last year. Like these aren't Mason Miller types. Right. Exactly. These are not Mason Miller types where you're like hoping to get 100, 110 innings out of the guy. Like both Bibee and Allen, I believe both pitched. I don't have the exact innings in front of me, but I believe both pitched over 120, 130 innings last season. So like, it's not only just actually Bibee last season pitched 135 as I try to add on a podcast.
I'll check out Logan Allen for you.
But yeah, both those guys are built up. Both those guys, like I watched the Bibee start this week. Very electric. And like, actually, I mean, the fastball command wasn't even there. The velocity was there, but the 3 secondary pitches that Bibee threw were missing bats, looked really good. The slider, the curve, and the changeup. And I mean, I don't know, but if the fastball command was that far off, and that improves in future starts, like these two guys, I think should command much more than like Mason Miller and Fab. And none of us can really we can sit here and like guess, basically is what we're doing. Guess what Cleveland is going to do. I think, we kind of have to assume they're going to stay in the rotation, both of them. Cause like, I mean, is Cleveland really going to run Zach Plesac out there for that much longer? Man. Like it's terrible. And unfortunately your boy, Cal Quantrill as well. Like
zero shares right now. That's all I have to say. I jumped off ship at the right time.
That's the thing. Like there are two very obvious. I know Aaron Savali is coming back. Tristan McKenzie will be back like mid-season if everything goes well there. But like Cleveland, I think they have to start these guys and keep them in the rotation. And if that happens, like I said, the combination of being built up and the skills are fantastic. It's kind of funny too. Like Cleveland, man, at least with HQ. So Chris Blessing does our Cleveland. He does our coverage for Cleveland's minor league organization. He had Bibee 6th and Logan Allen 9th on Cleveland entering the season. Number 1 was Daniel Espino. Number 2 was Gavin Williams. Like there's even more ammunition in that rotation coming up. So it's like a good problem to have for Cleveland. But yeah, short term, like I do think Allen and Bibee are both worth the price of admission.
Yeah, Allen was I added up about 133, so you're good there. Nick in the chat said 130 because, of course, he knows it off the top of his head because he's a pitching guru. But it's funny you mentioned that because Plesac garbage. Like take him in his puka shells and go. Quantrill. The great thing is actually if they want, Plesac and Quantrill both have options still. Plesac has 3 options. Quantrill still has 2. Like they can just send them to AAA. It's that simple. That's why I can't wait for the excuses. That's the problem. It's like the whole Taj Bradley thing could happen again. And it's like there's no excuses. Like these guys can be sent down. You don't have to worry about this, that, and the other. It's fine. You mentioned Gavin Williams. He just got promoted to AAA and dealt in his first AAA start. He's just around the corner. There's been some great talks on some recent prospect podcasts about the future of Cleveland, and then Baltimore is a whole other story too. The farm systems of those two teams are just so loaded right now. They almost need to make a trade to grab some veteran presences elsewhere because it's like the Rays in recent years we've always joked about. They have so many guys. They just had to like trade because they had to. Otherwise, they just lose them situations. and Cleveland is definitely there. It's a scary rotation. If they could somehow have a healthy McKenzie, if Bieber could ever figure it out, like I'm scared about Bieber, honestly. That's a concerning spot there. But you got McKenzie, you got Logan Allen, you got Bibee, you got maybe Gavin Williams, and then you got Espino. Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Like that is a terrifying, and injuries happen, but God forbid they don't. That could be like a 6-7 year just run of terror going through that rotation, at least till they all need contracts. So that could be a fun run there. So we'll see where it goes. But I'm with you. I'm just keeping my ear to the news through the weekend. They both should be here. I'm going to be putting bids in on both of them. But the way we've seen things, it's April 27th when we're recording right now. And we've seen so much up and down with big time prospects already.
I know.
It's pretty nuts.
That's the scary part. That's the scary part is like we just do not know.
Yeah, like shameless plug on Friday, I'm having James Anderson on bench with Bubba, and literally the outlines, I went through every team, and I thought I didn't do every single team, but all the potential guys that could be called up this year. What are we doing? Like, do you think it's worth it? Should we spend money on this guy? Like, that's what the whole show's premise is going to be. Like, how do you I'm not making them rate these dudes, but just like, hey, what do we got? Like, fill in the blanks here because this is wild.
And it's more important than ever. Maybe this is just what it seems like. I don't know. Compared to seasons past where we've kind of had to wait with like Super 2 and things like that, wait till May or June. It's a totally different game with the new CBA where these top starters are coming up early. And it's like, you do need to not only trust the workload, trust the skills, but also trust the organization context and try and figure out how long these guys are up or down, because this stuff, whoever pans out or does not pan out between like a Taj Bradley and Mason Miller, all these Cleveland guys, we've already seen kind of what Grayson Rodriguez, what has happened to him. That's going to win or lose leagues, at the end of the day, at the end of the season. So it's very interesting. We did not, as a fantasy community or whatever, we did not have to really weigh this situation
ever,
like before ever. Yeah, exactly.
So usually we have like one or two Fabapaloozas a year where like 5 guys come up at the same time. Yep. Right now it's like every single Fab period.
And that 2019 Fabapalooza, that was like late May, and it was I don't want to say it was easy, but you knew you had the scouting reports, you knew the workload history of these guys, and you could pretty much assume that once they were up after Super 2, they would stay up with the team. Maybe they get blown up and get set down, but it wasn't a manipulation thing at that point. Now we're kind of totally throwing darts at that stuff.
Yeah, it's bonkers. Talk about throwing darts. The preseason favorite, Darlene Jordan Walker, that everybody loved, got sent to AAA. It's the opposite. It's the Taj Bradley effect. But a lot of this is more like the reason why some of us were skeptical during draft season. Like, I think my only share was Tout Wars, where I was like, whatever, I'll take him at the round I took him in. I was nervous in any NFBC league, period, because there's so many outfielders in St. Louis. And once they all got healthy, here we are. Like, Tyler O'Neill can't even play regularly. That's the situation we're at. So Jordan Walker goes back down. He's hitting 274 with 2 home runs, 2 steals on the season. Not playing horribly. You probably want a little more walks from him. They said, I read somewhere that he's actually working on a new approach to the plate, like new batting stance and stuff. And they'd rather have him play full-time in AAA to keep working on that than play every. If that's true, that kind of makes sense. I can live with that, because why play him once a week and develop it? It's a bummer. He's another guy I 100% expect back, because I think the Cardinals have to make trades. They have too many mouths to feed there. But we'll see. It's a weird one. So he's one that, unlike Taj Bradley, it might be harder for me to hold Jordan Walker with just so many people in his way.
That's what I was going to ask. I think in like a 15-teamer, you hold at least for a little while. Weeks, I was going to ask you about a 12, because like honestly, the plate approach from Jordan Walker, and maybe he's tinkering with different things. Like he was chasing a lot. Yeah. He was whiffing a lot. He was not walking, and he was hitting a ton of balls right on the ground, 60% ground ball rate. Like that combination of factors from Walker in his first kind of foray against Major League pitching. Like I unlike Taj Bradley, I kind of when you tack on the outfield depth that St. Louis has, I understand why they made this move. I do think he's a tough hold in a 12-teamer. I don't know, Bubba. I mean, you play that a lot more than I do, but
yeah. I'd be dropping him. I was close to doing it already, and like against Tout Wars, it's not an FBC, but I was getting really close there because I just had him on my bench, and it's like I could use something else here just because he's not playing. And we always talk about plate appearances are key, and it's the crowded outfield. You mentioned the plate approach, like the guy in spring training had power through the roof, and we just aren't seeing it. So it's all about adjustments. We talk about it with young players all the time. You have to come up there. Pitchers are going to adjust to you. You got to adjust back. So that's why I kind of believe when they say he's working on a new approach, like everything you mentioned, he needed a new approach. Like it makes sense. What he's doing is not working at the big league level. So that kind of makes sense. I have a feeling we will definitely see from Jordan Walker again this year, and it might be a totally different Jordan Walker. And at that point, I'll have to bid on him. But I don't think I can hold on to him. Like I'd rather drop Jordan Walker and try to go get Logan Allen or Tanner Bibee this week and live with those repercussions than sit there on Jordan Walker hoping he comes back, because he might be more like a 6-week thing, maybe even 8 weeks if like they don't trade any outfielders. Where Taj Bradley's 3 to 4, so I think I'd be dropping him. Yes. All right, some sad news, but like I told people in some of my chats that I'm in, news I appreciated. I don't know how to phrase it properly because I don't want like ever to see, especially Robbie Ray, who I was buying into as a later, like a not later round, but like if you waited on pitching, a good SP2, SP3 with strikeout upside. I was a big fan of that with Robbie Ray. But they announced he's having a flexor tendon surgery or something. He's out for the season. I appreciated they finally made the decision because now we can just drop him. You don't have to, because I wasn't dropping Robbie Ray because he was just like, oh, we're just going to wait and see. We're going to try to throw. He's that good. You just hold it as long as you can. Now it's an easy drop. Now it's another guy you could drop for Tanner Bibee or Logan Allen or whatever. So that's bad news, out for the season. Good news, you can just move on now.
And that's the tough thing. Like I know injuries happen everywhere, but like Robbie Ray was like as stable as they come. I mean, in terms of like actual innings, 189 innings last year, coming off 193, coming off a full 12 starts or whatever in the short season, coming off 174 in 2019. Like Robbie Ray was a horse. You could, argue the skill and ratios in some of those seasons, but yeah, I mean, I guess I get what you're saying. Like it's just an easy cut now. Seattle's got some issues, man. We thought that rotation was deep. It kind of is, but like they've got Chris Flexen that's in their rotation. That's a weird flex for that team.
So proud of you.
There's not.
I'm so proud of you.
I prepared that one. There's not much there's not much in the minors. There's a chance you see like Emerson Hancock later in the season, but you're not stashing or holding someone for that long. So there's not really a replacement. Chris Flexen is bad. You do not want Chris Flexen on your team.
I think Dylan Jerry's going to have to make some phone calls.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yes, I would not be surprised.
Maybe the Cleveland Guardians. Just throwing it out there. They have options, or even the Giants or somebody. Just go make some phone calls because they're going to need it. That's for sure. Another guy that dominated fantasy last year came out of nowhere, stole 23 bags in 99 games. Jake McCarthy got sent to AAA, and rightfully so. He just was not getting it done. Needs to get his head right. Needs a new approach. I don't know, but it was not pretty over the first 22 games. 1 home run, 2 stolen bases with a 143 batting average, Ryan. That ain't going to cut it.
Not going to cut it. And just kind of a lesson learned. I think McCarthy was pretty polarizing in draft season because yes, on the one hand, you do have a legit, what McCarthy did last year was very impressive. On the other hand, you had some platoon risk. You had a crowded outfield in Arizona. You had some shaky defense. We talked about that a little bit last week on the show, and that combination of things just kind of went south. So it's rough. I'm actually interested. I wrote this in my speculator column at HQ this week. I did a skills without roles kind of theme, and I think he now has a role. Pavin Smith, at least against right-handed pitching. I don't think Pavin Smith's going to hit against lefties, but in weeks or days where the Diamondbacks are facing righties, I think Pavin Smith is a pretty sneaky ad, and he's, I would think, available everywhere right now.
Yep. This is where when you say that, I noticed Smith a while ago. This is where playing DFS helps a lot because you see him playing there, and he was crushing baseballs. He did that in the past, but he just never had a path to playing time. Yeah, he's rostered in 3% of OCs right now. So that tells you everything you need to know. But yeah, he's taking that role, and it's probably a great spot for him. He cannot hit lefties very well at all, but it's a perfect spot for righties. He could like him and Longo could just share the DH role if they really wanted to. Maybe like the perfect storm. The other big winner in this scenario, if you can call it a big winner, is Alek Thomas. This is a guy to keep an eye on. He's also young, 23. He's only hitting 103 with 2 homers and 2 RBIs, but he's a guy that Ryan Venancio knows prospects very well and lets you know his opinion on them one way or the other. And I make that as not as a joke, just seriously. And he opened my eyes to look at him. His EV is 91.4, his max EV is 110 on the season. But what he's doing right now is a 9% barrel rate up from almost 4% last year, a 49% hard hit rate. There's a lot of quote unquote unluckiness potentially taking place with Alek Thomas. He also wasn't playing regularly, so maybe that changes. His contact skills, not ideal, but not horrible. So this is a guy that you would imagine could take a liking to playing every day. And I think that's something just to keep an eye on, I would say. With Alek Thomas, he could become a big winner. And if you're looking at OCs, 12-team leagues, he's rostered in 42%. So he's probably going to be one of the more popular additions potentially this week. I think people wish they would have known this move with Coors coming up. Would have made that move more. But we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, I did just look. I looked ahead to Arizona next week, and they do only get Arizona faces a lot of lefties. They get 2 lefties this coming weekend, and then Arizona only faces, I think, 3 righties. They have 2 off days, 2 lefties, and 3 righties next week. So I don't know if maybe I'll pump my own brakes on Pavin Smith just schedule wise, but I think the concept at least persists.
Yeah, they only play 5 games next week. That's a bummer. But yeah, he gets John Gray's velocities down. You get Josiah Gray. Which one do you get? And you get Trevor Williams. So at least the end of the week schedule, you could potentially get a Josiah Gray, Trevor Williams sit against Mackenzie Gore start. That
pretty juicy.
That might come up in a game next week. I'm just throwing it out there. I don't think he'll be less than 50% rostered, but we'll see how that plays out. Last bit of news here happened on Thursday. Actually, started on Wednesday night. Aaron Judge attempted to steal a base, got caught stealing, ran straight to the locker room with some trainers, came back, did not play in the outfield the rest of the game, DH'd only the rest of the game. Came back and played on Thursday, left with the hit pointer bugging him yet again. Oswaldo Cabrera went into the outfield, the super utility Oswaldo Cabrera. My goodness. Like, just pick a position so we can get other eligibility somewhere. The dude's all over the place. But Aaron Judge, this is one of those, he's day-to-day. I could see him resting for sure on Friday. I don't know if it's serious enough for an IL yet, but we'll have to wait and see.
I mean, it sounds like he's out for the weekend. That's the latest RotoWire thing. So it said he could miss a few days. And so all of a sudden it's like, does that bleed into an IL stint? But yeah, I don't know. We figured we'd throw that on it doesn't sound like super serious, but it does sound like, and Judge has already tried apparently to play through this. And you know what can happen sometimes when, it can weigh on. It's almost worse. You almost want someone. I'm not saying this is, I don't know exactly what's going on with Judge and how serious it is. You almost want them to take the time to get right, get back, miss a week, whatever, and get back to yourself, as opposed to trying to play through it, which it's pretty obvious Judge was trying to do that after the really bad slide, like poor form. But
big tree
on Wednesday,
big tree fall hard. That's what that was.
Big tree fell very, very hard.
He used to go back to yoga class. Looked like he wasn't doing much yoga with that kind of slide. No, that was rough.
Stanton's available to help on the IL.
And that's the other part I was going to mention is this Yankees team, just like last year, not good offensively. Not good. Like, they need Judge to have a pulse. They're a small ball team right now compared to the Yankees of old. They get Jacob deGrom on Friday. Good luck. That's all I'm going to say. Like, yeah, Clark is its first. Well, we'll talk about who he's facing here in a minute, but you have interest in that start. But Jacob deGrom, yeah, I got over under 10.5 strikeouts in that game. I think it's going to be a big one. But we'll see.
Probably 4 of them against Aaron Hicks.
I guess
man. It's like a regular again. Aaron Hicks is bad, man. He's not good with the bat. Can't play defense. He gets booed all the time. Like, it's not
like
good.
You feel like if they all got healthy, he'd get DFA'd, but they just can't all get healthy. because it's wild in New York.
Yeah.
All right, I kind of hinted at it. Let's talk weekend matchups game. This is always fun. Like we text each other during the weekend. I mentioned on the show last week because of the ever-changing landscape of the Cleveland starting rotation that Peyton Battenfield was supposed to pitch on Sunday, but if he didn't, Ryan said I could change if necessary. So I texted him. Logan Allen was pitching Sunday. I said, "Hey, can I have Logan Allen?" He said, "Yep, that's go for it." And he did pretty good. So, do you want to recap the week since I let off with that?
I'll let you have. I'm a man of the law, so the law reads. Judge Bloomfield will allow it. The law reads that you are eligible and able to use Logan Allen the second week in a row because he is under 50% rostered in 12 teamers, and that is a true fact for Logan Allen. What did we do? How did we do last week? What do we?
I won pitching, you won hitting. We just keep going back and forth. It's
all right. Yeah, I took 3-2. Yeah, your replacement of Logan Allen obviously was awesome. I feel like I got a little shafted.
You got shafted.
Kikuchi. Yep. And like I said on the show, like I'm a little bit worried about the whip, the walks, that sort of thing. Kikuchi went 6 innings, struck out 3. That's it. And so that's why I lost, because we're doing innings plus strikeouts minus earned runs. Just a quick aside though on Yusei Kikuchi, like dude's quietly been
really good.
Really good. 3 ERA, 111 whip. And not just the surface,
6 total walks.
Yeah, 6% walk rate. That's crazy. And he's doing it while still missing a bunch of bats. Who knows how long this lasts, but that's my little aside.
No, it's a good aside. He's a guy that if a lot of people play Yahoo and stuff, he's available in a lot of Yahoo leagues. So keep that in mind. There's an option there.
Yeah. He did lose. He did. I'm trying to justify why I lost, but so I did lose despite my Kikuchi pick. On the hitter side, you took Max Kepler. I took Jack Sawinski of the surging Pittsburgh Pirates. Jack Sawinski, have a week, man.
I loved your tweet about the Pirates, all the stolen bases and everything. It's just like you just put it in a microcosm of the craziness that they're doing right now.
I didn't even mention, so like I think I've got it right here. Brian Reynolds, Andrew McCutchen, Jack Sawinski all have at least 5 home runs and 4 steals apiece. G1 Bay has 10 steals. I think he had 4 of them this series against LA, who's missing Will Smith behind the dish.
They're missing him in a big way right now.
David Bednar has 8 saves. Johan Oviedo has a 3.03 ERA in 29 innings. And Mitch Keller, who we'll talk a little bit more about listener question-wise, looked fantastic today. He's 3-0. I think leads baseball, or is tied for the lead in baseball in quality starts, 40 strikeouts in 35 innings. I didn't even list like Connor Joe, Rodolfo Castro. It's quite a start in Pittsburgh.
Very impressive. Yeah. So you had Jack Sawinski, who had a big week, 5 walks and total bases combined. I had Max Kepler, who for the second time let me down. Hopefully it's the 3rd week in a row he let someone down. So it was a fun week. I'm up 3-2. It seems like we're going to keep battling back and forth. So if you want, you can feel free to preview some of the better matchups of the week.
Yeah, so I took and this kind of goes in tail with the matchups, but I took your boy Max Kepler for the reason Minnesota gets 3 Kansas City righties, and it's Jordan Lyles, it's Brad Keller, and it's Brady Singer. The HQ matchup tool, which we run starting pitcher rankings over the weekend, that you can access. If anyone wants the link, any subscribers want the link, it is for subscribers, but it's super useful. I use it all the time. That's our easiest matchup of any team, and that even takes into account like Minnesota's hitting, which is marginal, but yeah, cheapest matchup, best matchup for me. So I'm hoping Max Kepler finds his stride on Team Bloomfield after he did not twice for Team Bubba.
Yeah, and I love the pick, and I've talked about it. Why I've liked it, because he's just not walking this year, actually, compared to usual. He used to be a massive on-base machine. That'll probably happen this week now that you're rostering him. But he's talented. I like it a lot. I went a different route. I took on Coors Field, and I went with Geraldo Perdomo of the Arizona Diamondbacks, who head to Coors for the weekend. And they have like the 5th or 6th best schedule according to HQ. You get Kyle Freeland, you get Nate Davis, and you get Austin Gomber in Coors Field this week. And what I love about Perdomo, 2 things. He's a switch hitter. So we don't have to worry about that situation. No platooning there. And we're doing hits and walks. And the dude has multiple hits in like 4 of his last 7 games. He's walking over 11% of the time this year. So I'm going to take my chances heading into Coors Field that Perdomo can get me maybe a walk, at least a walk in a total, like 2. Let's just say a number 2 each game. Leave with 6+ on the weekend, and take down some Max Kepler action.
Won't happen, but you can hope. You can hope.
There's always hope. Who's your pitcher this week? Because this is what I hinted at earlier.
I'm going, and he looked really good the last start and really last couple starts. Clark Schmidt, who was off to a really terrible start, gave up 3 runs, 4 runs, 3 runs, 4 runs in his first 4 outings. Looked fantastic. Looked like the Clark Schmidt that folks were drafting him for in his last start against Toronto. I mean, 8 strikeouts against Toronto, 3 hits, 5 2/3. So I like where Clark Schmidt and some of the changes that he made for that start. I like the matchup's okay. It's Texas, but 49% rostered, I believe, in 12% in 12 teamers. So barely slid under the threshold. But I like Clark Schmidt this weekend. I don't know about the run support without Judge, but we'll see.
That doesn't matter in our game, so you're good there. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I'm kind of rooting for you actually this week because I want to see Clark bounce back, but not bounce back enough. Let's put it that way. I'm going back-to-back weeks. You already said it. I got Logan Allen again this week. I was approved by Judge Bloomfield. Taking on the Boston Red Sox, team striking out almost 23% of the time versus lefties. They have a little bit of pop against them, so we'll see how he can go like earned run-wise in this one. But I'm expecting 5-6 innings again, 6 at least a K an inning, and then just limit the damage. So I think we have another big weekend ahead for Logan Allen. But Schmidt could do that too. So that's why it's an interesting matchup with 2 young arms this week. And I like my options there, but I wouldn't be shocked if Schmidt gets it done. So I have a hunch we'll be tied again this week, and I'll be up 4-3 next time we talk.
The hope. It keeps us interested.
Yeah, keeps us interested to see who wins the golf for the season.
Exactly.
All right, let's talk Bloom boards here as I close out like 7 tabs. Bloom boards for the week. We were talking about mid-round. We did slow hitters last week, mid-round guys, basically past ADP 100. Now we're doing starting pitching, Bloom. So why don't you kind of let everybody know what we got going on?
So this is just, misery loves company. People love the hitter discussion last week. And again, since we're talking like mid-round, these are pitchers where like you can make decisions on. A lot of these guys have been cut in certain league formats, whereas like early slow starting pitchers that have gone in the first couple rounds, you're just holding. So I feel like this group is a little bit more interesting. I took ADP from pick 100 to 250. ERA to qualify for this list of crappy starters, you had to have an ERA over 5 or a WHIP over 1.3. And I don't know. We'll just kind of go through and talk about guys who, maybe you sell low, maybe you cut, maybe a rebound's coming, those types of things. But probably weave it in with a bunch of listener questions because people were, you all were very, very interactive with guys who wanted to discuss. So that's awesome.
Yeah, we'll start with listener questions in a minute, but I have a question for you first because it kind of will go in with some of the listener questions, but it's something I've been battling a lot. I know I've seen all different analysts ask this question, and to me, it's a very tough one to answer right now. So I just want to get your 2 cents on it. If you've answered it before, I apologize. But in this landscape of pitching we've seen this year, that's been really kind of unordinary, I would say, kind of weird. So we look at like velocities, but that could depend on, the pitch clock and guys getting tired and guys getting rushed. We've seen a couple guys throw like a couple good starts, couple bad starts. Like there's really no consistency yet. I know we're gonna have questions on it, but how are you like processing concerned levels? I guess like is this because like Zach Gallen's first 2 starts were atrocious. Now he hasn't allowed an earned run in 4 straight starts. Like he's back to Zach Gallen. And Giolito, even his last 2 starts, he's looked really, really good. But then there's other guys where it's flip-flopped. And then you got Hunter Brown, who's got 3 really good starts and 2 questionable starts. Like there's like a smorgasbord of that kind of going on. And some guys just suck. That's simple too. But how are you kind of looking at that? I know it'll tie into our Bloom board too.
Yeah, I mean, more so hitters than pitchers, but I don't try to overreact really at all unless there's like crazy drops in velocity, even like spikes in walk rate. A lot of that stuff can just be mechanical, or even, I guess it's not as much of a thing anymore, but signs and tipping pitches, like it could just be stuff like that where an outing or two, word gets out that this pitcher's doing this with his glove before he's going to throw a curveball, and like that can have major impacts on especially numbers this early. So I'm really not overreacting. It was interesting. Friend of the show, Rob DiPietro, did a poll on Twitter earlier today asking, would you take, given what we know the first month of the season, would you take the aforementioned Zach Gallen or the basically one or 1A starting pitcher Corbin Burns entering draft season? It was interesting. I think the results, not sure exactly what they were, but Gallen won. So I think that's
about recency bias, folks.
Yeah, I think that's a mistake. Unless something's clearly wrong, velocity's clearly off, or whatever. Try not to react too much to 4 starts or wherever we're at. I think that's the main theme that for most of these guys, I think I'll be repeating. The other thing is to just calibrate people. Run scoring is up throughout the league. I think the league average ERA is around 4.30.
Yeah, so I think
that's pretty high.
Somebody said that. Yeah,
so
it's high, and I think was tweeting that, and then Rob actually commented on. I think it was his tweet with a screenshot of the first set of games this year. It's like all of April, basically, March and April, and then March and April of 2019, almost identical stats. Remember 2019, Ryan? Remember that year?
I do.
The bouncy ball. So a lot of similarities, which is kind of interesting as well. All right, let's talk about some listener questions here. And we'll start out as I load this up. All right. Joel Anthony asks, oh, no, that's a hitting question. We're doing pitching first. We'll get hitting later. Dave Sawa asks, what do you think is Lance Lynn's biggest issue right now? Velocity, vertical movement, command, all of the above. And can he fix it? Bonus points if you can find a silver lining to make me feel better. And it's weird because the biggest bugaboo with Lance Lynn, it's like he throws 4 fastballs, and fastballs are very hittable if they're not at a good velocity, they're not located. And that's kind of Lynn's usually good at that kind of situation. And he had that big second half last year, so got all of us optimistic on Lynn coming into this year. And it's been brutal. He's ADP 104, 15% K to walks, definitely not good. 13% swinging strike, 425 Sierra. What are you seeing here? Because I'm definitely not dropping Lance Lynn yet. But and one thing I will say is he was actually pitching well his last start until the 4th inning. He had 1 bad inning. The first 3 innings, he looked like Lance Lynn, and then he had that 1 hiccup again. So, what's your thoughts on Lance Lynn?
I'm really not worried at all about Lance Lynn, and maybe I'm just being stubborn because he's on my main event team. I'm sticking it out with Lance Lynn. I mean, no other option. But the big thing for me is the strikeouts are still there. He's still missing bats. Velocity's down less than a mile an hour. Yes, Lynn is a little bit fastball or extremely, I should say, fastball heavy, but this is all a combination, I think, of bad luck and a 380 BABIP when your league average is around 300. That's hyper inflating Lance Lynn's whip. 23% homer to fly ball ratio. The league average on that, I'm not exactly sure what it is this year, but it's around 12%. And research at HQ has shown that pitchers really do not have that much control over homer to fly ball. Once it's hitting the air, it's kind of outside of their control. So Lance Lynn, I think, will be fine. The only skill concern that I see is walks, right? 11% walk rate after years of being 7%, 4% last year. That could, like I was saying before, could just be something mechanical, could be something thrown off. So I'm not too worried about Lance Lynn, mostly because the strikeouts are still there, the whiffs are still there. And we saw what he did in the second half last year after a rough start coming off the IL. So not worried.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm still holding out on Lance Lynn. He's one of those guys that could flick the switch and get rolling here. Like I said, the 3 innings gave me much more. Before this last start, I was starting to get concerned. But seeing those 3 strong innings, I'm like, okay, he had a hiccup like that, especially in the. I'm still a believer. Like most of these guys are getting used to the pitch clock, but I think some of these guys, it's like eventually it's going to catch up with them, and they're going to keep working through it and getting better. And we'll see how it goes. Maybe I'm just being a fool for thinking that way. That happens too. But yeah,
There
we'll
is
go
there
that
is entertainment value in watching Lance Lynn suck because he's
always.
animated out there.
The big man has animated. I'm a
wanna
big fan of that. Like I wouldn't know how that happens. I've never done that before, but I'm just saying, big guys showing some animation, lots of fun there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Steve Brunn has a question. He had a couple, but he had one. It was Lance Lynn. Are we looking like a 2022 repeat that it takes him 8 to 9 starts to get going? Last year was the knee. This year the clock. I think that's kind of what we're thinking. Like just let him get going, let him cook. Like they say, let Russ cook, let Lance cook, and then we'll be fine here. His other question Steve had was Brady Singer, and this was a popular one that popped up.
Yeah.
Take anything away going? Can we take anything away going forward that he didn't get a lot of work in spring training due to being on the WBC roster and not getting action? Couple thoughts. That's no pitch clock on the WBC, so that could be a little something there. But for me, what it's been about is his fastball doesn't get swings and misses, and he was locating it extremely poorly. Like it's almost a batting practice fastball. If he's not in the shadow zones and stuff, any professional baseball player can hit his fastball. So he has to figure out a way for his secondary pitches to dominate to allow the fastball to work. And it was better this last time through. Still not even a 10% swinging strike rate on the game overall, but it was better. What's your thoughts on Brady Singer? Like I'm not loving Brady Singer, but you never know. It could change.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a little, like, Kyle Hendricksitis to him. I don't know if that's a thing or a disease or whatever, but, like, it's just a guy who's gotten by on pretty good control, but, like, a ton of, like, called strikes, not many whiffs at all. Brady Singer has been near the top of called strike leaderboards for a couple years now, and I just wonder, like, is that sustainable? Because like you said, Bubba, like, the fastball, I guess sinker, whatever, he's throwing it half the time, 4% swing strike. Like that is, I mean, no one's missing the fastball. He's throwing a slider almost 40% of the time. That is getting whiffs, but like it's hard to really have 2 pitches when one of them just doesn't miss bats. And I think like I just feel like Brady Singer, the whiffs have never really been there in the aggregate for Brady Singer. I just worry about like if the command is even slightly off, the stuff is just not there to overtake it, and we're seeing that. So, like, yes, Brady Singer could go back to the version that we saw in 2022, but like, I don't know. I would say I'm much more concerned about Singer than I am Lance Lynn, just because I don't think there's much he can fall back on. That command needs to be like pretty perfect for Singer to be a okay pitcher.
Yeah, like his last start, 6 innings, 1 run, 5 Ks against Arizona. Still, like I said, not a 10% swinging strike. Got destroyed by Texas, destroyed by Atlanta, destroyed by the Giants prior to that. And it was like 4 home runs against Atlanta. He's not fooling anybody. I kind of, I'm probably wrong in saying this. I feel like he's a poor man's Shane Bieber right now because Bieber's not, he's got to locate or he's in trouble these days. He doesn't have the strikeouts, but he's getting away with it enough where Brady's not. And that's just the difference right now. Like Singer scares. I mean, Bieber scares me, just because like I'm not dropping him by any means, but just his velocity being down so much, it's concerning to me. But yeah, interesting to see with Brady Singer. Richard Sands, his comment. Oh look, a list of my pitchers sinking my teams. Yeah, that's pretty standard. That's another hitting question. Boom Zoom said, I bought into the Brady Singer breakout, but I am ready to give up. Any underlying numbers to support holding on? Not really, until you can look at the fastball.
Yeah. Yep.
This one's not on our board, but it's a pitching question, so I'll ask it from Little Book of Calm. He says, looks like nobody's asked it yet, so I'll do it. Who throws the most innings rest of the season, and how many of these guys reach 100 innings? Bibee, Taj Bradley, Logan Allen, Mason Miller, Brendan Fott, bonus Tyler Glasnow. Out of the prospects, I think they all reach 100 except for Mason Miller, but I'm on the pessimistic side of that one. But what about you?
Yeah, it's definitely not Mason Miller. I'd be shocked to if Mason Miller was the one out of that group. I would say Logan Allen will be my guess. Allen, then Bibee.
They should be the two for sure, especially since they're not back in AAA like Taj Bradley is right now. So it should be one of those two. I'm with you on that. Brendan Fott, he should be up real soon, like real
Yeah.
soon. So
Yeah.
keep an eye on that one, folks. They keep manipulating his starting dates to almost line up to miss Coors this weekend and come back next week. That's what it feels like with Brendan Fott. And I don't think Tyler Glasnow gets 100 innings. I'll say that too. Drew at
He
Fru
had so
underscore
many
Dort.
last year.
So many. At Fru underscore Dorte asks, and this guy's on our list, where are John Gray's strikeouts? Gray has 4% K to walk, 10% swinging strike, and a 5.58 ERA. His velo's down a lot. He is on the concerning side of things.
Yes, I agree. The velocity's down, coupled with the whiffs are, you said, way down. The control is not there. 12% walk rate. Like, I don't know. Maybe it's one thing that fixes this, but I don't know. John Gray has had obviously all kinds of injuries in the past, but like lower injuries. So like not exactly arm, but like he had last year, he had obliques, and I don't know. I'm worried for those reasons. Like swings, yeah, you get that lower velocity, you get the fewer whiffs, combine that with worse control. Like you don't want to overreact, but pretty much nothing has gone right. Where at least with like a Lance Lynn, you can hang your hat that the whiffs are still there.
Yeah, John Gray looks like a broken pitcher right now. And he'd be 1 in a 12. That would be pretty close to chopping block right about now. Like he's real close if he's not, because 12, and that's one problem that I might have that others are like, what are you doing? I'm being much more easy to drop people in 12s this year. Like that's one thing I'm telling myself, continue to churn, stop praying for guys to fix themselves. Unless you see like Lance Lynn, you can see things. Other guys, I'm like, you know what? Backfire, but I'm going to go get someone right now. Like if I'm a 12, if I can go get Taj Bradley and drop John Gray, that's what I'm going to do. Like stuff like that. If I can go get Tanner Bibee this week by dropping John Gray, go for it. That's my 2 cents. 15, a little different. But
and it's tough because John Gray, I mean, on the surface, he has a 3.91 ERA. Like that's really not that bad, but like I just it's ticking. You can't. The BABIP is 243, which I don't have it in front of me. I'm sure that's one of the lowest and more favorable, lucky, whatever you want to call it, numbers out there when your league average is closer to 300. So like I don't know, regression's looming for Mr. Gray.
I think, as they say, never judge a book by its cover. So John Gray is one of those guys. It might be. I won't use the bad jokes, but just know the last name and what else we could say with Gray, and we'll leave it at that. Let's talk about some more pitchers here because the rest of our questions are hitting related. So we'll have some fun here. Jesus Luzardo is a very interesting one to be on this list because his first couple starts were really, really strong, Ryan. It's been a little uncomfortable watching him start the last few. Like I said, dominating early on, but the swing and miss, not quite what it was. He just got beat up by the Guardians. Didn't even make it through 5 against the Giants. It's been like he's still getting the strikeouts, I guess, so it's not as bad, but the overall performance is not there. So what are your thoughts on Jesus Luzardo?
He'll be fine. I mean, the only thing I'm worried about, and this has nothing to do with what Luzardo's done so far, is just what does this second half version of Jesus Luzardo look like? I mean, he's never thrown more than 100 innings in the majors. We all know the injury history with Luzardo. What we've seen so far from Luzardo, I think, has actually been pretty great. Like on opening day, he had 4 walks, but other than that, 1 walk, 2 walks, 1 walk in his last 4 starts. Yes, like he missed a ton of bats his first 2 starts. That's gone down a little bit, but like on the whole, Jesus Luzardo, I think, looks pretty good. I don't know. I don't know. I wonder if he shoves the rest of the first half, and if you're in a trading league, if you try and move that around the All-Star break. I would like to see Jesus Luzardo go 150, 160 innings at some point. I mean, this is only his age 25 season, but do worry about how he progresses in the second half if this stuff can hold up. But no, so far short term, I'm not worried really at all about Luzardo.
Yeah, he'd be a fun one. Who throws more innings, Tanner Bibee, Logan Allen, or Jesus Luzardo this year?
Yeah, that's true.
That's an interesting one. Honestly, is like, so if you're in trade league, something to think about in those scenarios. Kevin Alvis in the chat says, "Is Fought worth a preemptive bid?" I'd say yes, yes. Like, I know we've thought he'd be up about 2 weeks ago. I really think it's next week. It's lining up like next week. They need another starter. Like, if they don't do it now, then they're really screwing with him. Like, it's a weird situation. And they're the best team in the NL West right now. Bring them up, make some magic happen. Let's go. Don't let the Pirates outplay you guys. That's just funny.
It is. I mean,
yeah.
It does seem like, just to add on to that, like, it does seem like it's going to be very soon for Fought, like in the next week or two. So I think this is the time to put your bid in if Fought's available.
Yep, it's going to be your last chance to get him as cheap as possible. Let's put it that way. Kota Singa is an interesting one. I've been in one of the Discords I'm in. There were some rumblings of anger recently with Singa. He's got a 4.15 ERA, a 4.6 Sierra, 1.6 WHIP, 12% K to walk, 11% swinging strike. He's got all these great pitches. Looked great his first 2 starts against the Marlins. And then the A's got to him. The Giants got to him. I actually watched that Giants game. Singa didn't look great. And then in the Nationals, he survived. He ended up with 7 Ks, but that was a rough start there, too. He got it towards the end in that start. So what's your thoughts on Kota Singa, who's obviously first time in the bigs? He's got 1 million pitches, but he's having some issues, it looks like.
Yeah, and he's tough because, like, I don't know. I don't really look at the overseas numbers because it's so hard to, like, translate what that might be in the majors. But, like, another thing I kind of look at too, especially this early, is like, was it just 1 bad outing, maybe 2 bad outings or whatever? Or is it kind of consistent, what we've seen? And with Senga, it's been consistent lack of control. Has not had a start with fewer than 3 walks, and has walked 4 in each of his last 3 starts. So, like, control is an issue, and that just cascades into everything. Being able to go deeper into games, all that sort of stuff. He hasn't gone more than 5 innings. Senga has, in each of his last 3 starts. Against schedule is also another factor. There's a million factors, all this stuff, but, like, these last 3 starts where Senga has not been able to really do much at Oakland, at San Francisco versus Washington. Like, that's your meaty part of the schedule, and he hasn't been able to do it. So, again, I don't have like a final word on Senga, but I mean, I guess I do. I guess it's pretty negative. I just haven't seen, until the control improves. I don't know. It could be rough.
Yeah, it seems rough. Let's put it that way. Another guy I wanted to ask you about, because I've been watching him closely between different columns I've written in DFS and everything, is Jack Flaherty. Now, for those that have listened to our show enough, know I was not on Jack Flaherty in draft season. I have my thoughts on Jack Flaherty. At the same time, I'm watching his return from injury. And each start, it feels like there's something to gain from each start. There's also some negatives. I'm not going to say there's not. But this last start, especially 6 innings, 3 earned, 9 Ks, the swinging strikes were back up to 19%, which was huge. A couple starts ago, he had a 14% swinging strike rate. So what I ask you, because he's on the list here, 3.29 ERA, 5.46 Sierra, 1.35 WHIP, 6% K to walk, 11% swinging strike. Are you seeing anything? Like, I'm still not like all aboard the Jack Flaherty train by any means, but I'm seeing a guy that he's not an ace, but he's not an SP5 either. Like, he's starting to have his moments where he can be serviceable. So how do you look at Jack Flaherty?
Do you know? You probably do since you have the game log, but don't look at your tab. How many walks did Jack Flaherty have in his first 2 starts?
Way too many. I don't know the number, but I know it's way too many, because that's one reason why he has the K to walk he has. And again, like I said, I've been watching these. Like, I remember writing up, I think my first week, like, buy high, sell low columns, sell Jack Flaherty. And then I've been like watching each week as the changes have been made. And he's always been super cheap in DFS. So, like, I'm interested because I know there's still a ceiling there somewhere. So I look at his stats every time he's on the mound.
13 walks. That would qualify as way too many in 2 starts. 7 walks and 6 walks.
I think we could
you're right. Like, he has turned things around. Flaherty has, but I mean, the last start at Seattle was his best of the year. I don't know. I look at, like you said, a 6% strikeout to walk is really bad. Like, your league average there is, I believe, like 18. So that's well below. And you look at.
Let me stop you real quick. So
Go
take
for it.
out those first 2 starts as he's getting healthy again. He nearly has a 20% K to walk his last 3.
Would you say he's healthy again, though?
He's going 6 innings to start, so I'm thinking he's getting there. Like,
Yeah.
he's not laboring like he was when he was hurt. That's the conundrum with him. Like, again, I don't think he's an ace again, but the fact the walks did decrease, it's always a sign of good control is coming back potentially. So I'm just trying to play devil's, like, for once we're going to disagree on something. This is fun. So what else are you seeing besides, because like if you count you can't take every game out obviously, but take those first 2 starts out. His last 3 have looked much better compared to the first 2.
No, you're right. I mean, that's the hard part. Like you can't pick and choose which starts you want to have and not have and that sort of
But
thing.
if you add them now, you can.
Yeah, that is true. I mentioned it with Luzardo, but like I just can't trust what a second half Jack Flaherty looks like either.
100%.
I mean, this is someone since 2019 hasn't been able to throw 80 innings in a season because of the shoulder, and just like I don't know. I'm out on Flaherty. I mean, I didn't draft him anywhere, so like that's I don't know if you did either, but
No,
I'm
that's why
much
it's
more
weird. I'm so
pessimistic.
invested in him. I have 0 shares, like 0 shares.
I don't know, until Jack Flaherty can show, like, I mean, it's kind of weird. Like we talk about 2019 happy fun ball year. How many starting pitchers had their career year in 2019? Jack Flaherty, dude, posted a 2.75 ERA, 0.97 WHIP, 230 strikeouts in the happy fun ball year. That's wild.
Let's play devil's advocate here. How sticky were his hands in those games?
Yeah.
Because now he's been hurt. Now he's been hurt ever since then.
Yeah.
So like I hate being that person. Like, okay, he had a career year where no one should have a career year, and he's been hurt ever since then with arm, elbow, shoulder, whatever. Like, to me, there's a correlation there somewhere, but I could also just be throwing stuff at the wall and seeing literally what sticks. So it's it's interesting. But to your point, yes, who has a career year in the happy fun ball year? That's pretty wild. Trevor Bauer, maybe. Like, we know how he got there. Anybody else on this list you want to mention? Like, Charlie Morton's always fun to me because I don't even really look at his numbers anymore. Like, I say it on my DFS show. Okay, Charlie's going to go out and throw 5 or 6 innings, give up probably 3 runs, and strike out at least a batter an inning, maybe slightly more. That's what he's going to do. And if you look at his game logs, he's done that almost every single start. That's just what he does. It's never pretty. He just finds a way to get you 5 or 6 almost quality starts every single time out. So what's your thoughts there? Because the overall numbers seem to be a bit different when you look at them.
Yeah, like, but beneath the surface, there's some issues, I think, with Charlie Morton. Like, yes, a 2.76 ERA, that's fantastic. The 1.40 WHIP is not. At HQ, we've got him around like a mid-4s ERA in terms of raw skill. And it's interesting, like the dichotomy with Charlie Morton, who this time last year on the surface was like terrible, but the skills look really good. It's completely flipped so far this season. You tack on Morton's age. I mean, this is age 39 with the whiff rate that Charlie Morton has. It was right around 13% the last couple of years. That's down to 10. That's a big drop for Morton. Like, I would be looking to trade Charlie Morton if I had him in a trading league. I don't think this hot start lasts. And again, you tack on the lack of whiffs with the age. I'm a little bit worried, and I was pretty high on Charlie Morton entering the season. So I don't know.
I know I threw this to you to give me a guy, but I have to ask you one more just to make sure we talk about him, because I'd feel bad if we had this Bloom board and didn't mention him based on his last 2 starts.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I'm saying Nick Lodolo.
You threw me off. I thought you were going.
No,
thought you were going all green, Mr. Bloomboard himself, but no. Okay.
No, I wasn't going Nate Eovaldi on you. I want to talk Nick Lodolo just for the fact I think a lot of people are curious on what's going on with Nick. You know, he's got 6.31 ERA, but a 3.38 Sierra, almost 1.9 WHIP. That is like killer for a fantasy team. He's got the 22% K to walk, which is crazy to have a WHIP like that, but a K to walk like that. Like, do that math. 13% swinging strike. His last 2 starts have been horrific. Like, it's not walks that are getting him 9 hits, 12 hits, 8 hits, 3 hits, 7 hits in all of his starts. Back-to-back starts he had 6 and 8 runs allowed. What are you seeing when you look at Nick Lodolo?
The same as last year. This to me is like this is a prime example of what external factors to what a pitcher can control, how much that can change. Once the ball is put in play, like the pitcher has some control over whether it's a ground ball, fly ball, that sort of thing. Like once it's put in play, they don't have that much control over it. Nick Lodolo, 30% strikeout rate each of the last 2 seasons. Same ball percentage, basically the same swinging strike rate. Like the skills are exactly the same for Nick Lodolo. Not worried one bit about a 6.30 ERA, a 187 whip, which, yes, is truly awful. But this, to me, looks like the same guy that we saw last year, which was a really good version despite the bad team context. So still worried about that. It's kind of crazy. Like Lodolo actually has 2 wins in his 5 starts, despite his 6.30 ERA. He had 4 wins in 19 starts last year. So that's pretty weird.
Yeah, the Reds, I think, had the fewest wins out of stars. It was the Reds or the Pirates last year. Maybe the Pirates. But, yeah, it's pretty wonky. Okay, now I'll let you have the floor. Is there anybody else you'd like to discuss on this list?
I mean, we have to, pay homage to the
To
legend,
your boy.
Eovaldi. I mean, literally, like, he has some of the best skills of really any pitcher on this page, despite a 5.20 ERA and a 141 whip. Nate Eovaldi, I think, looks fine. 26% strikeout rate, 4%. He's not walking anybody. He's missing a ton of bats. The velocity is the same as it was last year. Yes, there were some issues at the end of last year, but Eovaldi looked fine this spring, and I think he's a tremendous buy, actually, despite the 5.20 ERA.
Yeah, their swinging strike rates are outstanding every single start. That's pretty impressive to take a peek at when I looked under the hood on that one. All right, Ryan did tweet out the Bloom board, so make sure you guys go check that out. It'll give you an idea of everything else. Let's talk some listener questions here. Your buddy, Oregon Ducks 2, asked, what is going on with Anthony Rendon's power? He's slugging .311 with nary a home run. Scott. Yeah, this is a weird one. Like, he's kind of hitting, but there's 0 power. Drury just found his power a couple games ago. Maybe Rendon does. I don't know. I'm not really on Rendon, but what do you have when you look at Anthony Rendon?
It's weird. Like, he's really not swinging and missing at all.
Yep.
The Oakland A's fan. He's walking a ton. Like, the plate skills look totally fine, but the power is completely gone. And like, sometimes you say, okay, well, he's at least making hard contact. It'll turn around. Anthony Rendon has 1 barrel and 73 plate appearances. Like, that's pretty bad. I'm inclined to say the power will come back slightly, but I don't think he's going over like 15, 20 home runs. I mean, Rendon, I think if memory serves me, he had a career year. I mean, when Washington won the World Series in 2019. Yeah, that's when he had 34 home runs. Rendon has never hit more than 25 in a major league season since then. So 240 batting average, that's pretty terrible. I think that turns around quite a bit more than the power. So like, if I had to bet on one thing happening, it would be Rendon putting up some actually pretty good ratios, batting average and OBP. But the power, yeah, it's not there. And you just wonder, is it injury related? He had like the wrist surgery last year that could very much be bleeding into 2023.
Yeah, it takes they say it's like at least a year for the wrist injury guys to kind of gain. Like, outside of Matt Olson, he's kind of the not the guy you don't count in this scenario. Most guys take about a year at least to get that back. Yeah. Nate Curtis asked, when do you start taking hitter changes seriously? Thinking specifically about players like Nolan Gorman or Sean Murphy. A lot of bright red on their baseball savant pages. I take both of them very seriously. I like 100% seriously, especially Nolan Gorman. He's proving what we thought he would be now that he's figured out how to not strike out 1,000,000 times. Still strikes out a lot, don't get me wrong, but not 1,000,000 times. So I believe it. But what say you?
This is where we differ. I don't want to say not at all, because obviously that is shielding my eyes and saying players can't change and that sort of thing. I mean, research has shown, like, the most, and Rob Silver has said this repeatedly, but like the most predictive thing you can look at for the rest of season for a hitter is their actual projection, is their projection, and projection systems do not really change that much. I know I'm laying a a generalization here, but like Nolan Gorman, pretty much every projection system has Nolan Gorman hitting like 240 with 20 home runs on the season. So that means like 14 more. And Nolan Gorman's hitting 295 right now. Every single Fangraphs projection system has that going way down. And I trust that a lot more than I trust what we've seen in 4 weeks from Nolan Gorman. And maybe like Gorman's not the best case because this is a prospect who's like maybe finally hitting their stride in the majors. And so like I'm kind of speaking more in general as opposed to just Gorman specifically. But especially for hitters, I do not look that much at what they've done over 4 weeks compared to the track record, which feeds that in-season projection, which is shown to be more accurate than a short stint, hot or cold.
All right, so we do differ because I'm seeing the barrel rates, the hard hit rates, the approach at the plate has changed with Nolan Gorman. I ask you then, let's play this game. I have another hitter for you to tell me, are you believing or not? Josh Lowe of the Tampa Bay Rays. Because if you want to believe projections, this dude's ready to fall off a cliff. So what are your thoughts with him?
Yeah, like has not really done anything in the majors except for strike out until this year. So like you're picking prospects. You're picking prospects.
Yeah,
so like
because it's hard for projections to nail these guys down when there's not a track record. That's
exactly.
my point.
And so like I should say it's a little bit harder. Like you just said, it's a little bit harder for projections to nail these prospects because it is so hard to figure these things
Do I have
out.
to talk to you about Fernando Tatis
Jr.
in a certain projection system again?
Yes. Maybe you move it. I should qualify. All right. Maybe you're winning this argument for prospects, but for anyone who's had like really any kind of track record in the majors, I'm much more trusting that over what we've seen in 4 weeks.
And I don't disagree with that. My thing is with the prospects, I'm trying to more of a grain of salt scenario than if it's a proven commodity, I'm much more inclined with what you're saying in that one. Like at least a regression coming in, maybe not a full fallback to the projections, but regression should creep in for sure.
I got you.
All right. Joe G asks thoughts on Paul DeJong's comeback breakout. Couple things I got here because I've been watching this very, very closely because he's been free in DFS this week. Paul DeJong, he came back on Monday. He's hitting 417 since he returned with a couple home runs, a couple doubles, only striking out. He has 1 strikeout in 17 plate appearances, which is great. You know, back in 2021, 19 homers, 2019, Happy Fun Ball hit 30. Never been a batting average guy, but power's been there. I'm not calling it a breakout just yet because he just got back. That's my caveat. And there's a lot of mouth to feed. He's not even playing every day. He comes off the bench, but he's not playing every day. So keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, it's been less than 20 plate appearances. So like this is an example. Yes, trust the projection.
I'm with you on this one. I'm with you on this one. This is where we get back on the same page.
This is a guy who like he hasn't hit 200 in either of the last 2 seasons. That's over 600 plate appearances. Hits a ton of fly balls, which yes, he's got some power, so that might help. But like you strike out as much as DeJong has with that many fly balls, and just like that batting average is going to be brutal. So I don't see a breakout coming for Paul DeJong. I think we know who he is, which is like a Joey Gallo light with like very light, with a terrible batting average and maybe some pop in middle infield, but that's about it. I'm not that enthused. And like you said, Bubba, a lot of mouths to feed in St. Louis. Any kind of slump, the lows are very low for someone like this. And with alternatives in St. Louis, the leash is short.
Yeah, at best, you're going to probably get a 240 hitter at best. One thing I'll say is the projections, a lot of them have him playing like 35 to 44 games. So you can extrapolate, like at least Zips has him in 100 games and 16 homers. So it's one of those, if you don't care about your batting average for some reason, you just want power in a super deep league, sure. But he's more of a weekly streamer. Like, hey, the Cardinals are going to play in Coors this weekend, and there's 3 lefties on the mound. Okay, let's go get Paul DeJong for the weekend.
In the ultimate scenario.
Perfect storms here, Pete. So I mean,
that's like
I think best case scenario, he plays maybe 4 games a week. I think he's more like on the 2 to 3 times a week starting time, but you never know. The Carlos Marmol, the manager, is just what he's done with that roster. It's amazing he's still employed. So you never know. You never know. But overall production, not.
I should say, yeah, be nice and not bad guys, but like in weeks where they go to Coors and Great American Small Park and face 7 lefties,
the perfect
he
storm.
is rosterable.
Yep. So he doesn't suck completely. The 99th percentile option. This is where we're going.
This starting pitcher faces Oakland the next 6 times in the rotation.
Yep.
I'd stream him.
There you go. Last question we have here is Joel Anthony at Jag NY 1987. How long are you holding on Casas and Vargas? I've already dropped Casas in a 12. He homered earlier this week. And I'm cool with dropping Vargas in a 12 if you need to, because he's going the Luis Ariz path where except it's OBP, not batting average, and not a whole lot else. And he could prove me wrong. Things can change. But in a 12, I'm finding better options out there right now.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, just short-term wise, if I had to pick one, if there's a decision to make here, I'd still go Miguel Vargas over Casas in the short term. Vargas, I think you need to take some account to I think it was his hand pinky injury this spring. I do think like he did play in spring, but like was not swinging for almost half of spring training. Miguel Vargas is, you mentioned James Anderson is going to be on your show on Friday. He's James's number 4 overall prospect. Unless you have to, I don't think you cut bait just yet. Like he's playing still every day for the Dodgers. If they believe in Miguel Vargas, I would too. So I would hold on to Miguel Vargas over Casas right now. It's funny. Both are on my XFL team, which is just totally, we actually traded for Tristan Casas this week.
Yeah, but that's a long-term keeper format. Like that makes a lot more sense to hold on to.
And OBP.
So and you're rebuilding already in April. So it definitely makes sense going that direction. I don't fault you in that at all.
Wouldn't be surprised if Vargas has like a second half, if the power comes back a little bit in the second half.
And that's where I was going to go. I think Vargas could be in for still a great. Like Casas, I think he needs a new approach at the plate almost. Like he's got the power still. There's a lot else missing there. Where Vargas is putting good at bats together still, so it makes me feel like a slight tweak and maybe a little more aggressiveness could turn into a whole different. Like that's why I'm not out on him. Like in a 12, I could see it just in you're moving back and forth thing, because he's hard to start right now. That's the difference. In a 12, he's hard to start. But I'm with you. I wouldn't be shocked if by the end of the season Vargas is a top 5 in a Rookie of the Year candidate, and you're seeing like close to 20 home runs, and because the thing is we're expecting like speed too, and there's nothing. Like he's doing nothing right now. It's just dead out there. That's the part with him that's frustrating. But I'm also with you. Like I wouldn't be shocked if something happens eventually. Yep. All right. That'll wrap us up, Mr. Bloomfield. Any final thoughts as we've done mid-round hitters, starting pitchers? It's been a fun go. We'll be in May. We'll be a month into the season when we talk next week.
Yes, for better or worse. Like I can no longer say on my struggling teams, oh, it's still April, because it won't be, and I need to make some moves. But yeah, man, fun show. We'll figure something out again next week. Maybe we'll talk about like guys who are good, guys who have been good, or something.
Do we believe in it? Do we believe in it? Or are we cutting bait now?
Yeah, but no, as usual, appreciate all of the questions and players you guys want us to cover. We love doing it for you all. So another good week, man.
Yep, another good week. Hopefully we get some fewer injuries pretty soon. That'd be really awesome. Let's just calm down on the injury front.
It is wild. Yeah,
it's insane. But one thing that is fun is every morning Jason Collette updates like the numbers, like the statistics in baseball. They've been slowly coming back to earth. So that is something worth monitoring. Stolen bases, the power, all that slowly coming back to earth. So I'm curious to see if that's a trend that continues and we start getting a little bit of quote unquote normalcy in our fantasy game. But until then, we'll be back with you guys next week. Make sure you follow Ryan on Twitter at RyanBHQ, the podcast at Bubba Bloom Pod. I am on Twitter at BDentric. This was Bubba and the Bloom, episode 54. Catch you all next time.